She was just an ordinary woman serving coffee in a small bakery until one terrifying moment with a cockroach sent her crashing into the arms of a stranger. What she didn't know was that this man was hiding a secret. He wasn't just anyone. He was a millionaire whose love would change her life forever. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The morning light poured through the windows of a small bakery on a busy street. Inside, customers enjoyed their coffee. The smell of fresh bread filled the air, and soft chatter created a warm atmosphere. Among the workers moving quickly behind the counter was Clara, a young woman who always greeted everyone with a smile, even on the hardest days. Clara wasn't wealthy, and she wasn't chasing fame. She simply worked each day with quiet determination, making sure customers felt welcome and cared for. Her life seemed ordinary to anyone watching from the outside, but that was the charm of Clara. She carried a simple strength that few noticed until she was tested. That test came in the most unusual way. It started with a sudden scream. Clara had seen something small crawling across the bakery floor. To others, it was nothing more than a harmless insect. But to Clara, who had always been afraid of bugs, it looked like a monster. Without thinking, she panicked. Her feet moved faster than her thoughts, and in the middle of her fear, she stumbled forward. In a moment she would never forget, Clara fell straight into the arms of a stranger sitting quietly at a corner table. He had been sipping his coffee, his eyes lost in thought, when suddenly the waitress he had barely noticed came crashing into his lap. Gasps filled the room. Someone laughed nervously. Clara's face turned red as she clung to the man's arm, her voice shaky. "I'm so sorry," she stammered, breathless. It had wings. I swear it was flying straight at me." The man, calm and collected, looked at her with steady eyes. He was dressed neatly, his presence commanding yet gentle. Instead of reacting with anger, he gave a faint smile. "Don't worry," he said in a soft tone. "You're safe now. Do you always greet customers this way, or am I just the lucky one today?" Clara tried to laugh through her embarrassment, though her heart raced. "Only with the ones who look like they won't scream louder than me." Their eyes met for a brief second. The bakery, filled with noise just moments ago, seemed to fade into silence. Then the chaos returned. Voices shouting about the bug, people pointing as if the small creature was the center of disaster. "It's heading for the counter," someone yelled. Still holding her balance, Clara pointed with trembling hands. "Someone stop it before it ruins the bread." The stranger slowly stood, setting Clara gently aside. He picked up a folded newspaper and with calm precision ended the little commotion. He set the paper down, then looked back at Clara with a half smile. There, danger removed. The crowd clapped jokingly, as if he had saved the bakery from a grand disaster. Clara, still flushed with embarrassment, whispered, "Thank you. I don't usually throw myself into strangers' arms." "That's a shame," he replied lightly, "because for me, it made the best coffee break I've had in years." Before Clara could respond, the man left some money on the table, gave her one last look, and walked out the door. No name, no number, no explanation. Just a calm exit that left Clara frozen in place, her thoughts spinning. Her coworker, Emma, rushed to her side with wide eyes. "Clara, do you realize what just happened? You landed on the most handsome man that's ever stepped into this bakery." Clara shook her head. "I landed because I was running from the bug, not because of strategy." Emma laughed. "Well, it looked like a scene straight out of a romantic movie. Maybe he'll be back tomorrow." But Clara wasn't so sure. Her heart was still beating fast, not from the insect, but from the stranger's gaze. Who was he? Why did his calmness feel so different from everyone else she had met? As the bakery returned to its normal rhythm, Clara forced herself to continue working. Yet inside, Her thoughts were restless. The brief encounter had left a mark she couldn't explain. She had met thousands of people serving coffee and bread, but this man was different. Outside, unknown to Clara, the stranger had not left the street completely. He paused at the corner, glanced back at the bakery sign, and pulled out his phone. He typed her name into a search bar, whispering with a curious smile, "Let's see who you really are." Clara, meanwhile, brushed crumbs from a table, still replaying the scene in her mind. She didn't know that her fall into the stranger's arms was only the beginning of a story that would change her life in ways she never imagined. The next morning, Clara walked into the bakery with a nervous smile. She hoped the chaos of yesterday had been forgotten, but it wasn't. Whispers followed her as she tied on her apron. A few customers pointed, some chuckled, and her manager's eyes narrowed the moment she stepped behind the counter. "Clara, in my office, now." His tone was sharp. She obeyed quickly, wiping her hands nervously on her apron. The small office smelled of old coffee and paperwork. Her manager leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, expression cold. "Do you realize what you did yesterday?" he asked. Clara swallowed. "I panicked, sir. It was a bug. It won't happen again." He shook his head. "This is a place of business, not a comedy show. Customers don't come here to watch employees jump into strangers' laps. It's embarrassing for the bakery's reputation. I can't have that." Her chest tightened. "Please, I've worked here for 2 years. I need this job. It was one mistake." But his decision was firm. "Clean out your locker, Clara. We're done here." She felt the ground slip beneath her. Just like that, her steady income, her small safety net, was gone. She walked out of the bakery, holding a cardboard box with her few belongings. The same street that once felt warm and alive now seemed harsh and unfriendly. That night, Clara sat in her tiny apartment, staring at overdue bills spread across the table. Rent was due in a week. Her savings were almost gone. She buried her face in her hands, whispering, "What am I going to do?" Days passed with rejection after rejection. She filled out applications, stood in line for interviews, and heard the same words again and again. "We're looking for someone with more experience," or "We'll call you if something opens up." No calls ever came. Then, one morning, her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Hello, is this Clara Reyes?" a polite voice asked. "Yes, this is Clara. We're calling from Hartwell Enterprises. Your application has been reviewed, and we'd like to invite you for an interview tomorrow at 10. Clara froze. "Hartwell Enterprises," she whispered. She had never applied to such a big company. Still, she quickly agreed, her voice shaking with excitement. The next day, she dressed in her best outfit, though it was modest compared to the sleek clothing of the people she saw in the towering glass building. Walking through the lobby felt like stepping into another world. Polished floors, large screens, employees in smart suits moving with purpose. She sat in the waiting area, her heart racing. The interview wasn't what she expected. The panel asked her about her work ethic, her ability to handle pressure, her willingness to learn. Clara answered honestly, sharing stories of serving difficult customers, managing rush hours, and staying positive through stress. To her surprise, they smiled. "We'll be in touch," one of them said. By the following week, Clara received an offer for a position as an administrative assistant. The salary was higher than anything she had ever earned. Tears welled in her eyes as she signed the papers. It felt like her life was turning around. On her first day, she was introduced to the staff. She tried to memorize faces and names, her nerves bubbling. And then, in the break room, she saw him, the stranger from the bakery. Her heart nearly stopped. He looked the same, calm, well-dressed, his expression unreadable. But he smiled when he saw her. "Small world," he said lightly, holding a cup of coffee. "Seems we're co-workers now." Clara blinked in disbelief. "You work here?" "Yes," he replied, setting his cup down. "Supply management. Nothing exciting, but it pays the bills." She let out a nervous laugh. "Well, at least you didn't tell anyone about my accident." He shook his head. "Your secret's safe with me." Over the next weeks, they crossed paths often. He introduced himself as Daniel, though he kept his role vague. To Clara, he seemed like just another employee, though there was something different about him. He wasn't boastful, he wasn't rushing like the others. He listened. He asked her questions about her dreams, her struggles, her family. They ate lunch together in the cafeteria, sharing small jokes and stories. Clara found herself opening up in ways she never had before. She told him about her love for drawing, about her fear of failing, about losing her job at the bakery. He listened with patience, his eyes steady, never judging. Yet what Clara didn't know was the truth. Daniel wasn't in supply management. He wasn't just another employee. He was the CEO of Hartwell Enterprises, the very man whose signature was printed on the paper she had proudly signed. As he walked back to his private office each day, Daniel carried a quiet conflict in his heart. He wanted Clara to see him for who he was, not for his title or wealth. But he also knew that the longer he kept his secret, the deeper the risk of losing her trust. For now, he chose silence. And Clara, unaware, found comfort in the friendship of a man she thought was ordinary. She had no idea that this hidden truth would soon bring both heartbreak and opportunity that would test everything she believed about love, trust, and destiny. Clara adjusted quickly to her new life at Hartwell Enterprises. What began as nervous days filled with confusion soon turned into a routine she enjoyed. She found a strange comfort in working alongside Daniel, the quiet man from the break room who always seemed to appear at the right moment. Their friendship grew naturally. They ate lunch together, often escaping the crowded cafeteria for a quiet bench outside. Daniel never acted superior. He never tried to impress her with fancy words or expensive habits. Instead, he asked about her family, her dreams, and her fears. One afternoon, Clara told him, "I never imagined I'd end up here. I thought I'd be stuck serving coffee forever." Daniel smiled. Sometimes life throws us into unexpected places for a reason. Maybe this is where you're supposed to be. His words stayed with her. Slowly, the walls around her heart began to fall. She had always been careful with trust, but with Daniel, she felt safe. Their connection deepened outside of work. On weekends, they walked through small street markets, tried local food stands, and laughed over things that made no sense to anyone else. Daniel seemed happiest in these simple moments, far from the polished glass towers of the company. Yet behind his calm smile, Daniel carried a heavy secret. He wasn't just another worker in supply management. He was the CEO, the man whose decisions shaped thousands of lives. Every time Clara joked about the mysterious boss of Hartwell Enterprises, Daniel fought the urge to tell her the truth. One evening, while they shared dinner at a small diner, Clara said, with a laugh, "I bet the CEO of this company is some arrogant man who doesn't care about anyone but himself." Daniel chuckled nervously, his spoon pausing mid-air. "You think so?" "Of course," she replied confidently. "People with that kind of power never see people like us. To them, we're invisible." Her words cut deeper than she knew. Daniel smiled faintly, hiding the conflict burning inside him. As their closeness turned into romance, Daniel's silence grew heavier. He wanted to tell her who he really was, but fear held him back. What if she thought he had tricked her from the beginning? What if she walked away? Their fragile happiness faced its first storm when Victoria Layton appeared. Victoria was a wealthy socialite who had known Daniel for years. She had her eyes set on him, and she wasn't willing to lose to someone like Clara. Victoria made her presence known in the office, dropping sharp remarks about Clara's background. She whispered to others that Clara was nothing more than a waitress trying to climb the ladder by seducing coworkers. Soon, rumors spread. Clara noticed the sideways glances, the sudden coldness from some employees. She didn't understand why people who once welcomed her now avoided her. Victoria's attacks didn't stop there. She approached Clara directly one afternoon in the lobby. Her smile was sharp, her tone cutting. "You don't belong here, Clara. Men like Daniel don't end up with women like you. Sooner or later, he'll realize it." Clara's hands trembled as she walked away, her confidence shaken. The breaking point came when Victoria revealed the truth. With a sly grin, she cornered Clara and showed her an article featuring Daniel's photo with the bold headline, "Daniel Hart, CEO of Hartwell Enterprises." Clara stared at the page, her heart pounding. The man she thought was a simple coworker, the man she trusted and loved, was the CEO she had unknowingly mocked. When Daniel tried to explain, she couldn't hear him. "You lied to me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "All this time, you let me believe you were someone else." Or, "Clara, do you know how small that makes me feel? Do you know how humiliated I am?" "Clara, please," Daniel said, his voice urgent. "I didn't want you to see my title. I wanted you to see me." But the damage was done. Her trust was shattered. She walked away, tears streaming down her face, leaving him standing alone in the very office he owned. Days turned into weeks. Clara struggled to find peace. She lost her job at the company, pushed out by whispers and rumors she couldn't fight. Applications went unanswered. Doors closed in her face. For the first time, she questioned everything. Had their love ever been real? Or was she just a chapter in a story Daniel had already written? Meanwhile, Daniel fought his own battles. He wanted to fix what he had broken, but every attempt only seemed to push her further away. He watched from a distance as she tried to rebuild her life, carrying the weight of his own mistake. Their love, once so bright, now hung by a fragile thread. And neither of them knew if it could survive the lies and betrayal that had torn them apart. Clara's world felt like it had collapsed after the betrayal. Losing her job at Hartwell Enterprises, watching her name dragged through whispers, and facing the truth about Daniel left her broken. But she was not the kind of woman to stay down forever. Even through tears and sleepless nights, a small voice inside reminded her that she still had her talent, her determination, and her courage. She began sketching again, filling pages with designs, logos, and small ideas. Clara had always loved creativity, but she had buried that part of herself under survival and routine. Now, with nothing left to lose, she decided to take a chance. She built a small marketing consultancy from her apartment, starting with local shops in her neighborhood. She created posters, designed flyers, and helped struggling family businesses present themselves in fresh ways. At first, money was scarce. She worked long hours for little pay, sometimes doubting if she had made the right choice. But her clients appreciated her honesty and dedication. Slowly, word spread. Shop owners began telling others about Clara's work. Within months, her small company started to grow. What Clara didn't know was that Daniel was still watching from a distance. He never stopped caring. He quietly referred clients to her business, never once asking for recognition. He believed in her talent and wanted her to succeed, even if she no longer wanted him in her life. But Victoria wasn't finished. Jealous of Clara's rising reputation, she hired people to sabotage her. One morning, Clara logged into her business account only to find it hacked. False messages were sent to clients, and private files had been leaked. Her reputation, built so carefully, was suddenly at risk. Clara felt the old fear return. She sat at her desk, staring at the damage, her hands shaking. "Not again," she whispered. "I can't lose everything again." That evening, there was a knock at her door. It was Daniel. He looked exhausted, but his eyes carried determination. "I know what happened," he said firmly. "It wasn't you. Someone is trying to destroy your work, and I won't let it happen." Clara hesitated, her walls still up. "Why are you here, Daniel? You already hurt me once. I can't go through that again." "Because I owe you the truth," he replied, "and because I can't stand by and watch you suffer for things you don't deserve. Let me help you, not as a CEO, but as the man who loves you." Though her heart resisted, Clara saw the sincerity in his voice. Together they uncovered the sabotage, traced the attacks, and proved Victoria's involvement. When confronted with the evidence, Victoria's influence collapsed. Her attempts to ruin Clara backfired, and Clara's clients returned, more loyal than ever. Months later, Clara's business gained recognition beyond her small neighborhood. She was invited to an award ceremony celebrating entrepreneurs who uplifted local communities. Dressed in a simple yet elegant gown, she walked across the stage to accept her award. Applause filled the room. As she held the microphone, Clara's voice was steady. "This is for every person who thought failure was the end. It isn't. Failure is just the beginning of a new path if you have the courage to keep walking." From the audience, Daniel watched with pride. After the ceremony, he approached her quietly. No spotlight, no audience, just the two of them. "Clara," he began softly, "I know I broke your trust. I know I hid who I was because I was afraid. But everything I feel for you is real. I don't want power or wealth to stand between us. I just want you. Will you give me?" But then she remembered everything. The man who caught her when she fell. The one who listened when no one else did. The one who stood by her when the world tried to break her. A small smile touched her lips. "You don't make it easy, Daniel. But yes, I believe in second chances." As they walked out together, hand in hand, Clara spotted a small cockroach skittering across the corner of the stage. For a moment, she froze, the memory of her first fall flashing in her mind. But instead of panicking, she laughed softly. "Funny how things come full circle," she said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "You're not running this time?" "No," she replied with quiet strength. "I've learned that some things aren't worth the fear. And besides, I've already fallen once. This time, I'm choosing to stand." Their laughter echoed as they left the hall together. Clara had rebuilt her life, not just with success, but with resilience. Her story wasn't just about love, but about courage, forgiveness, and finding strength in the places she least expected. And this time, it was truly a new beginning.